What an exciting golf match we've got going on right now as it's going to extra holes between Scotty Scheffler and Matt Fitzpatrick. And, well, we're going to do the show anyway. I thought maybe the show would fall perfect, like right at the end of the golf tournament. And then what happens? Fitzpatrick kind of blows a chip shot, then misses a long putt, and Scotty Scheffler ends up with par on the 18th hole. Fitzpatrick the bogey, and so they're tied and they're heading to extra holes. So it's a playoff between Scotty Scheffler and Matt Fitzpatrick. But we've got a lot to talk about, so we can't delay. We can't wait this out. We have to get this show going because there's so many things to talk about. The basketball portal is open and active, and there's a lot of activity to catch everybody up on as far as what's happening with IU, what's going on with Chris Kapko down at Ball State. What kind of activity is happening at Purdue Fort Wayne? There's certainly activity on the women's side, but what about the men's side? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the WNBA. The Indiana Fever reported to the start of training camp today. They are going to be playing a couple of exhibition games and then getting the season underway in about 3 weeks. So we'll have to talk about that. We've got the NFL draft this week, and of course, we've got to forecast what we think the Indianapolis Colts are going to do. A big game going on right now with the Fort Wayne Komets. They're going to decide their playoff fate as far as not whether or not they get in, but whether or not they have the number one seed and win the division against the Toledo Walleye. That's all up for grabs. I mean, this is crazy what's happening this week. The NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, those are going on. I mean, it is we could be on until like 9 o'clock tonight and not run out of things to talk about. And then of all days for my cohort to be running a little bit late with all this to talk about, it's Adam Lundy. What's up, man?
Hey, glad to be back.
Oh, man, it's great to be back. It's great to be back. And, you know, I was just going through the rundown. And I know you were in the process of doing a reboot, so you didn't get a chance to hear. But, I mean, I don't even know where to begin. With Tin Caps, the Fever, the college basketball portal, the NFL draft coming up this week. I mean, there's so many things that we need to catch up on. But first and foremost, let's talk about the Tin Caps with a big win today on the road. They beat the Lake County Captains 9-6. And, hey, yeah, you know, I've been telling anybody who's willing to listen. I don't know if you were among those that was willing to listen. Normally, you're not in that crowd. But I have been saying, and I know there are people that will back me up on this. I've been saying this team could be an exciting team to watch because of the depth of home run power that they've got. They've got 7, 8 guys in their lineup that can be home run hitters. And today, one of the guys that I would have counted for maybe one lucky home run all season hit a big one. So Jonathan Vestine, who wasn't even hitting baseballs, and today he launched one out of the ballpark. So big day for Vestine. The Tin Caps, they crushed, I think, 3 or 4 home runs. I don't know. The ball was flying at Lake County. If you hit it to right field in the air, it had a chance. And Tin Caps did exactly what I said they'd do. I said they're going to win games, but they're going to end up winning them like 11-10 because they've got some shaky pitching. I think their pitching staff doesn't have those true stoppers. You know, the one thing we've seen in the past, Adam, is you've had a group of 3 or 4 guys that you could use when you had a late lead. And the Tin Caps have had that for the last 2 or 3 years. They've had the 2 or 3 arms they could really trust if they got a 1 or 2 run lead late in a contest. I don't know that they found those guys yet. And we've seen a couple of different guys get their chance at closing. We've seen a couple of different guys get their chance at being the setup man. And so far, everybody's kind of had a high and a low. And we don't know really who's going to be that Garrett Hawkins, the guy that you can hand the ball to in the 9th inning and say, okay, finish it. We got you the lead. We're in the final inning. End this one, count it as a dub, and move on. And, of course, today they kind of struggled with that, and they got a real break on a final strike call that ended the game because Lake County was threatening to come back in this one. And the Tin Caps got a very generous strike that looked like it was low and outside, and they called it strike three and ended the ball game. Tin Caps will take it. They're on the bus ride back, and they'll be at Parkview Field this week.
Yeah, you said it. This Tin Caps team is looking like a lot of fun, a lot of explosive Bostons. They they said it. They tied a Tin Caps era team record earlier in the series with 5 home runs, and that was a lot of fun.
Well, that's what this team's going to be. They're going to be the home run is going to keep them alive in games, and the home run is going to make games swing. And we've seen a couple of games this week that have swung back and forth, and it's not only Tin Caps are able to hit home runs, but the Tin Caps have some pitchers that are willing to give them up. I don't know if they're willing, but they're able to anyway. It's like they're ready, willing, and able. Well, they might be ready, and they might be able. I don't know if they're willing, but it's just part of the process when you're developing a roster in the minor leagues. Is the Padres have made a lot of moves in the last couple of years. They've had some pitchers that have had to move up because of holes vacated from guys that were traded. They've tried to fill those holes quickly. They've probably got half a pitching staff here in Fort Wayne that's about a year ahead where they should be. They should probably be playing in Lake Elsinore, and they're here in Fort Wayne. But, that's maybe going to make them better in the future. But they've got to grow up really quickly and figure it out. What we've seen so far from a couple of the pitchers, they've got good stuff. I mean, these are guys that can throw low to mid 90s. Some of them are hitting the upper 90s. But what they've got to learn to do is they've got to execute. It's not all about, how fast you throw the fastball or how big your curve breaks. If you leave balls hanging in the wrong part of the zone, you don't hit your spots, you fall behind hitters, you're going to end up in trouble. And that's really the big difference, I think, between the low A, where you can get away with more mistakes. High A makes you pay for those mistakes. The collection of hitters has already advanced. They're better hitters than what they saw consistently at the low A level. And so the Tin Caps pitching staff just has to learn that you don't get away with a hanging slider. You don't get away with a changeup belt high. I mean, there's just pitches you're not going to get away with. Saw a left-hander last week who kind of rolled a curveball that curved right into the right-handed barrel. And today we saw a little bit of a hanger that got sent up there that didn't have a whole lot of break. It stayed above the belt, and it got crushed out of the ballpark. That's what happens when you make mistakes at the high A level. But the Tin Caps split the 6-game set on the road, and you'll take that. Split them on the road, try to win your series at home, and that will put you in contention to try to get a playoff spot. And we'll see what the Tin Caps can do now going out of the division and taking on Wisconsin, the Timber Rattlers, who I don't know if they've been here since pre-COVID. Don't have any volume from you. Lost you completely. Hopefully you could still hear me.
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay, now I can hear. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, apparently I'm getting my audio is coming through yours and then getting picked up a little bit.
Wonder why it's coming through mine.
I'm not sure, but
That's strange.
that is strange. One Tin Caps pitcher to keep an eye on, though, I think that has been good out of the starting role is Cash Mayfield.
Yeah. I'm just checking. Go ahead. Tell us about Mayfield.
No, he's been impressive in his couple of starts for the Tin Caps so far, and I'm not sure how much longer he'll honestly be around in Fort Wayne. I think he's going to get promoted up to Double-A soon. So.
Well, I can tell you that nothing is set up to put your audio through.
Yeah, it sounds like it's getting picked up by your mic. It's just super weird.
Well, according to my settings, this is the microphone.
Yeah.
And my speaker's way up over in the other, up over.
Super weird.
Yeah, I'll turn it down and maybe see if that helps. I'll turn you way down, nice and quiet.
All right. Check.
Hang on, I didn't do it yet. Okay, now try it.
Check.
Is it still the same way? Because I've got you turned way down.
I think that's better. Yeah.
Weird.
I think. Yeah. Okay.
My mic should not be that sensitive.
Right.
So anyway,
Anywho,
Rick, appreciate that. All right, so let's get things started with talking about Indiana, because Indiana's had an incredible week. People were concerned a week ago that Darian DeVries might not be the right guy for the Indiana Hoosiers because he's got an entire roster he's got to build. Is he the guy that can build a high major roster? Last year I said this how many times, and it's so funny because I actually had somebody tell it to me, and I'm like, I'm the one who actually said that first. That last year, DeVries assembled a really good mid-major all-star roster. He went out, got the best mid-major players he could get, couldn't really dig too deep or compete too much for some of the high major stars that were available. So he got the best he could. Good basketball players that had tremendous seasons at the mid-major level, and put them together and rolled the dice. And they competed. They played hard. They played, for the most part, unselfishly. But they weren't a great basketball team. They were an average basketball team that pretty much got what they were worthy of, and that's a mid-level finish in the Big Ten and left out of the NCAA tournament. Teams that are mediocre or maybe just above mediocre shouldn't be playing in the NCAA tournament. Teams that don't have a chance to win it shouldn't probably be in it. Hey, that kind of right. I think I have to. I might have to trademark that. If you can't win it, shouldn't be in it.
I think they have like a "In It to Win It." I think isn't that like a movie or something? "In It to Win It." I don't know.
I added a couple of words, so now it's exclusively mine. Don't try to steal it.
You got
if I see it on a T-shirt, I'm going to be upset.
It's all yours, but yeah.
But this year, armed with NIL funding and perhaps a year of research with the staff of knowing what type of players they were looking for, I got to say, he's doing it. He's doing pretty well. In fact, it's an Indiana kid that's keeping Indiana from being the best recruiting group out of the portal in the entire country, and that kid is Flory Badunga. Because until Badunga announced that he was committing to Louisville, and now Louisville is the number one portal recruiting group in the country, Indiana actually, by many accounts, had the best portal class coming in. But let's go through some of the players they got. First of all, they snagged Marcus Burton out of Notre Dame. Dynamic player, explosive scoring point guard. He can distribute, he can push pace, he can play in transition, he can hit shots, he can attack the basket. I mean, he's got the full skill set. It's not going to help you a whole lot on the glass as a rebounder, but everything else he can do pretty well. And they got him to kind of run the show, and he was one of the first guys they locked up. Then they went big. They went big twice. Samet, S-A-M-E-T. I'm not even trying the last name. Because I tried it the other day, and then I went on YouTube and tried to check and see if I could get a pronunciation, and there were so many variations. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to say he's the 7'2" big man out of SMU.
That'll work.
I can say SMU and know that I've pronounced it correctly. He's 7 feet 2 inches tall, averages 11 points per game, 7 rebounds, just basically a space eater. I don't know that he's going to be a monster scorer for IU around the basket, but you, like I said on my other video, you can't coach 7'2". And so you get this guy to bring you some size, and then you add with him a 6'10" stretch guy in Aiden Sherrill out of Alabama, and now all of a sudden you're starting to put together that 20-26 type lineup. And we've talked about that. You've got to have a 7-footer, a 6'10", a 6'9", and maybe even a 6'8" guard. I mean, that's what teams have been putting together that have started to be successful. They're going with big size. Part of this, and I've talked about this before, I think officials are letting play be a little more physical. They don't want to interfere with games as much. They don't want to blow their whistle and stop play and ruin flow of games. And so you're seeing a lot more physicality, and therefore the bigger guys are handling that type of play better. So you have an advantage if you have a big roster. But it also doesn't hurt if you have some really dang good basketball players like Michigan had, where they could shoot it, they could drive it, they could rebound. There was no weakness on that Michigan team. Somehow you were smart enough to pick them. Oh, and by the way, I want to say this. I have no way to track down the winner of our bracket contest. So if the winner of our bracket contest, and I'm not going to say who it is, but it wasn't you, Adam, but you were close. And it wasn't John Nolan, but he did finish second. So I give a shout out to John Nolan. But if you were the winner of our bracket contest, I've got the tickets for you. I just don't know where to send them because I can't access. I thought as the admin, the one who created the group, that I would be able to pull the email or send a message. I can't. So now I'm sitting here trying to figure out, how do I track down the winner? The winner's going to have to try to track down me. DM me, please, because I can be reached on my Twitter account at Brett Rump Sports. You can DM me, and we'll figure out some way to ID you, verify your identity, and get you the tickets to the Tin Caps game coming up this Friday, because they're great tickets and they're paid for, so I don't want to waste them.
Yeah, but it certainly seems like Darian DeVries paid a lot of attention to the success that Michigan basketball had this year and the construction of their roster and kind of looked to model a similar style of roster going forward and has definitely attacked the transfer portal head on. I mean, 6 commitments in just like 3 days is absolutely crushing it. And like you said, getting that scoring guard that has that physicality from Burton, I think is huge. You always are going to need a physical guard in the Big Ten that's able to bump and bruise and drive to the basket. And like you said, the two big guys that they got from SMU and Alabama, I like the size that they bring in. I mean, whether they're going to be key pieces to your scoring or not, that's not as important as necessarily just having that size down low sometimes for some of those Big Ten matchups.
By the way, weather this week at the ballpark: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, highs upper 70 to low 80s, sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
And even Friday, mid-70s, partly sunny, chance of a thunderstorm, but of course that's Friday. Let's not talk about that. But yeah, you're right. And here's the thing. Where is Indiana getting their players this year versus last year? Last year we were talking about schools like Sam Houston State, Drake, they had Loyola or something like that. I mean, they were pulling guys. Those are mid-major programs, right? Mm-hmm. This year, the guys they're getting are from Notre Dame, Alabama, SMU, Villanova, Georgia Tech, Duke. I mean, that's a different caliber of player that you're bringing in. And so you bring in the 7'2" kid, you get the 6'10" kid, you got Marcus Burton running the show, and then you add to that some support in guys like Bryce Lindsey, who just committed, I think, Thursday or Friday. Bryce Lindsey, a 6'3" guard out of Villanova. Jaden Mustaf out of Georgia Tech, 6'5" guy that averaged over 10 points per game for Georgia Tech. Darren Harris out of Duke. Comes from a quality program, 6'5" guard, 3.5 points per game. And then, remember, you keep Trent Sisley, who everybody thought might be among those to transfer. He's the lone Hoosier that returns. So that gives you a 6'8" guy that can play the 3 or the 4, primarily the 4. But, depending on how big you want to match up. But it's solid. I mean, the roster's well-rounded. They got high major talent. They didn't get mid-major talent. And so you've got to be excited if you're a Hoosiers fan with this collection coming into Bloomington.
You do have to be excited, and you do feel like definitely now the standard for DeVries should be the tournament. Field of 64 should be the goal for the new team here.
All right, and you know who else we got to talk about? Because he joined the show, and really appreciate Chris Kapko taking time out of what had to be a very busy transition period where he was hiring coaches. And by the way, just want to point out that we broke the news on his coaching staff. On this channel, we were the first. If you go back and watch Chris Kapko's interview, he had not announced his coaching staff. He announced every single member of his staff. In fact, he said on the podcast he had just completed his coaching staff, and he went through the entire roster of coaches, which Ball State University themselves did not announce for about 4 more days. So if you were following this podcast, if you had the little alert set so you could, be notified when there's new material being posted, you could have known the Ball State coaching staff days before everyone else. Now, the message boards got tipped off somehow because I had a friend who's a member of a Ball State message board told me, yeah, your podcast is getting mentioned on the message boards because they're saying that's where Kapko's giving out his coaching staff. But he had a tremendous transitionary period where he's trying to catch up in the portal. He's trying to talk to guys that are currently on the roster at Ball State, convince them to stay. He's putting together his coaching staff. Well, what a week he had at Ball State. One key point of this is he was armed with $1 million. I asked him about whether or not in negotiations to become the head coach, if NIL funding was part of the negotiations. Because remember, they used to always talk about it, and when a coach gets hired, the pool of money that's available for assistants is something negotiable by the head coach when they're being hired, but also facilities could be something. The budget for the overall program could be negotiated. Well, in this case now, coaches are negotiating what they're going to have available in the NIL fund that's going to be provided through the school. And Ball State committed $1 million to NIL. And Coach Kapko's putting it to good use because he's got KJ Parker out of UMass. He's been signed. He was signed Monday. On Tuesday, they picked up a former Mastodon in Trey Lewis. Now, he's going to be at his 4th school in 4 years. He started at Loyola in Chicago, came to Purdue-Fort Wayne, left Purdue-Fort Wayne, which was really a surprise. No one expected him to leave. There didn't seem to be a sign he was leaving, but all of a sudden he entered the portal and off he went to Western Michigan. That only lasted 1 season, and now Trey Lewis is becoming a Ball State Cardinal. Wednesday, they got Mason Jones back. He's one of the players that is returning. Aaron Fine, who's been at Purdue, enjoying that high major lifestyle with the charter flights and the nice meals and, steaks and caviar, whatever you get when you're on the Boilermakers. But now he's going mid-major to get a chance to get more significant minutes. And so Aaron Fine is rolling into Ball State. Cam McGilvery, help me out, folks. He's from Prolific Prep. He's out of Texas. I think he is either an incoming freshman or he's a 2027, but they got him. They got Joey Hart to agree to return. Joey Hart, of course, had gone to Kentucky originally and then eventually landed with the Cardinals. It was thought that he was going to be gone, but he agreed to return. Javion Guy King out of Central Arkansas Friday. Kai McGrew, who was a player that the Mastodons I know have heavily recruited over the last, probably last year, and were very hopeful on, but he made a commitment on Friday to join Ball State. And then Jaden Smith from St. Joseph's, he also going to the Cardinals. So lots of names to talk about. Unfortunately, I don't have the names to talk about with Purdue-Fort Wayne. I wish I did, but I hear at least what is being rumored is that they have a number of visits scheduled for this coming week. And these are going to have to turn into more than visits because you got to get a roster put together. And it's got to start with guys 6'7", 6'8", 6'10", or better. and then finish it off with your shooters. I still think this roster needs bigs and needs shooters. I think they've got the guard play that they're going to need. You might be able to pick up one point guard, but it'd be nice if he's a 6'3", 6'4" point guard instead of a 5'11" or 6-foot point guard, because you just have to be able to have the flexibility to put two of those guys on the floor at the same time, one on the ball, one off the ball. But if you put two guys that are 6 feet or under on the floor at the same time, you've probably got a liability. We saw it last year, teams immediately when Mikhail Stevenson would pick up, and a lot of times Stevenson would end up picking up a big guard or a small forward. As soon as team saw him do that, he's about 6 feet, 6'1", and immediately they would post him up or take him down low and try to beat him around the basket, and they would be able to shoot over him. And so it usually required help defense. Well, once you get put into a position where you're forced to have help defense, then it breaks down your entire defense. And so for the Mastodons, that's why I think they need to get bigger so they don't get broken down. When you see a team trying to target a smaller player, you can put a bigger lineup and take that option away so you don't have to get caught in a lot of double teams where you could be exposed to an open shot or maybe even an open cutter. But we'll wait and see. Speaking of Purdue-Fort Wayne, this would be a good time to talk about the changes in the women's basketball program. We have not had a real good chance to talk about the decision by Maria Marchesano to go down to Butler. And I know it broke her heart, but at the same time, she had to be overjoyed to get the opportunity to go to Butler. This was something where it was supported by both sides, had a chance to talk to Kelly Hartley Hutton, and she 100% supported the move and pretty much told Maria, you can come to me and say how difficult this is. She goes, but there's really no decision to be made. You've got an opportunity at Butler, and this is what you've coached for, to get to the highest level of collegiate basketball, and Butler, being part of the Big East, takes her to the highest level. Getting to play home games at Hinkle Fieldhouse, I mean, the most remarkable thing you've heard in college basketball this offseason would have been if somebody turned down Butler to stay at Purdue-Fort Wayne. It wasn't going to happen. And so wishing her the best. Now, the thing that was kind of disappointing is she took our whole staff with her.
Yeah.
It's like you could have left somebody in the office at least to turn the lights on and off. No, took everybody. So the entire Purdue-Fort Wayne coaching staff is going to Butler. Now, I understand like Lauren Ross is not going to continue coaching, but everybody else, Quincy, of course, Stephen Asher, they're all going. And Maria mentioned that it's going to be great to have charter flights. Not that we were in a league anymore at Purdue-Fort Wayne where there were a lot of commercial flights. There really weren't that many commercial flights. But there were some long bus rides. And this, most of the charter flights for the Big East are going to be an hour, hour and a half in the air. And you go straight from Indianapolis right straight to the campus. You get on a plane right after the game. An hour and a half later, you're back. And a lot of times by midnight, the night of a game, you're already back home in your bed. It's great. But the thing is, she got a comfortable pool of money for her assistants so she could bring all her assistants with her. And so now she's putting her roster together. But what happened at Purdue-Fort Wayne? They didn't waste any time. Within 2 days, they hired Kate Peterson, Aviad. Here's a couple of things that I think are fair concerns if you're a Purdue-Fort Wayne fan. Number one, you hire a coach who had somewhat of a mediocre record, okay, when she was a head coach at Cleveland State. Let's put it this way. The coach that replaced her had a better record than she did. And that's got to be a concern when you get replaced by somebody who does better than you did. Now, you could say they laid the foundation. Great. They turned the program around. Great. But this program comes in pretty good shape. And so you want somebody that basically is ready to take it to the next level, not to set it up for someone else to take it to the next level. The other part that you might want to be concerned about is that she comes as an assistant most recently at Green Bay. And I think that's great that she was in a successful program, learning from a program that has had tremendous success. Their former coach was very active in the program. Their current coach has done nothing but win since she's taken over. And so she's learned what success looks like. But a lot of times you hire coaches at this time of year because of the pool of players or the potential recruits that you can get to come with you. The fact she's going from Green Bay and coming to Purdue Fort Wayne, she's not going to swing a lot of the recruits that were already lined up with Green Bay. She also is not going to bring a pool of players that was playing for her at a different program. And so this program starts with the players that have not transferred out, 3 or 4 players that are still here as the core. But you've got to find talent. You've got to do it at a bargain price.
Simple as that, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of talent that she brings into the program, and I think your concerns are valid. I mean, it would be nice to have seen, a coach that had already just been a head coach, in the past few seasons, previous seasons come into the role, but we'll see. We'll see what she's learned in her time being an assistant after taking a break from her head coaching, and see if she can bring some of the Green Bay success. But like you said, players don't really tend to follow assistant coaches, so has to be a whole new talent pool that's recruited.
Here's also what's interesting. Coming to a town she's never lived in, my understanding is her husband is going to stay in Wisconsin, where he's a coach at Wisconsin Stevens Point. He's a volleyball coach there. And they've got a daughter, I think, that is going to go into her senior year of high school next year, and she will stay to go through her senior year. But the younger daughter, who I think is 12 or 13 years old, is going to come here and live with mom in Fort Wayne. That means, in some ways, it's almost a single mom who's going to have a lot of responsibilities to take care of someone in an area where she doesn't have a lot of family or a built-in support structure. So hopefully that doesn't pull her different directions, that she can really focus on the job and not have to focus too much time taking care of her daughter. Hopefully that all works out. But, I was thinking about the whole NIL thing because it's all about money right now. We talked about Ball State and that whole list of players. Well, Ball State's got $1 million handed to them in the NIL. If you look around the Horizon League, for instance, a lot of the teams that have already signed 3 or 4 players, those are the ones where the school supports them with a big NIL. And we're not getting that at Purdue Fort Wayne. In fact, right now, you almost have to figure one fixed cost of running a Division I athletics program is how much money is it costing you for NIL. Because if you don't have, as a mid-major, $300,000-$400,000 minimum set up in your NIL each year, you're going to have a tough time competing on the court when it comes that winter. That's what it's taking. It's taking money to build rosters. It is now a professional business, and you've got to accept that it is all about paying players. If you want the best players and you want the players that you think are going to make you better, you have to have something in the kitty to provide to them. And the schools that don't have the $300,000-$400,000 or more, they're going to be left behind. And it's very difficult to make it work. And so, that's the future of college basketball. But here's one way I think you can help schools that maybe aren't getting the NIL funding from their school themselves. They're having to fundraise it. But here's what I think needs to happen. We have to set up a developmental rule. And what that means is right now, mid-majors are bringing in the freshmen because they can afford them. They're bringing in the freshmen. They're developing, and the cream of the crop is rising to the top, and then they're being snagged away by high major programs. What has to happen is those schools have to be rewarded for their contributions to the bigger programs in college basketball, because ultimately those players, and I'll use C.J. Hadnot as an example, 3 years with Purdue Fort Wayne, and he started as a minor role player as a freshman, became a six man as a sophomore, became a star junior, and now he's off to Houston. But when you develop a player like that, you're the one that recruited them originally out of high school. You're the one that spent the hours in the gym developing their game. And the player is comfortably rewarded. Close to $1 million. You're in need at that point of some fair compensation. You should earn a commission off that player. And it may sound cold, but that's the reality. You did all the work to set them up to be a contributing player, maybe for 1 year, maybe for 2, at a high major program. That high major program should pay you for setting the table for them. And so my proposal, first of all, we need to put caps and limits on NIL. You can't just have freewheeling and spending out the wazoo to go get your roster. So there has to be some kind of caps and limits. You've got to rein it in a little bit because it's getting crazy. But what you also need to do is you need to provide some parity and balance with where the dollars go. And if a team like Houston snags a player that played for 3 years at Purdue Fort Wayne because they believe they're worth 1 year and they're worth close to $1 million, how much should they pay Purdue Fort Wayne for doing all the work over 3 years to get that player to where he's at? I say at least 15%, if not 20%, of the NIL money offered to the player should be a development fee that goes back to the university that had that player prior to their transfer to a high major program. Now, this might be limited to the top 7 conferences, Mountain West, A10, Big East, SEC, Big Ten, etc. But those schools are the ones that are paying these massive contracts. There's no way a kid is going to be able to afford to stay at a mid-major program if they're only getting paid, maybe 6 figures if they've got a sweet deal. And then they're going to be offered $1 million to go to, the money's crazy. So what I think is you've got to take 20% or so of whatever the players are being offered, and that's a development fee that goes to their prior university, and then that university can put that into their NIL fund, and that's how you replace the players that you're developing and losing prior to their graduation. I think it works for everybody, because I think the big boys that are willing to pay players $1 million should be willing to pay the schools that develop them and got their game to the level it's at. They should be willing to pay them 20% of what they're paying the player. For the school, that gives them probably more money than they paid that player when they were at their school, and therefore they can restock and reload and maybe even upgrade in the process. That's my proposal for the NCAA. Somebody's got to take it and run with it. Just make sure, BRETTRUMP. But it's a great idea, I think, because it's mine.
Would love to hear some of the listeners' thoughts on it, but yeah, it's interesting, and it's kind of a question of how much would you want to pay, like a percentage-based fee. I wouldn't want the money to necessarily come directly out of what the transfer player is going to be paid. I would want it to be like a separate fund, but it would still have to be a percentage of the total of what they're getting paid.
I don't care what fund it comes from. I just care that the mid-majors get this money. And that the money that is paid doesn't go to operating expenses of that program. It goes directly to NIL, so another student athlete can get the benefits of that roster spot. So it stays within the name, image, likeness world, and it becomes part of the pay that's being offered to players. But, if you're willing to pay a player $700,000, you should be willing to pay the school that got him to a $700,000 deal $140,000 as a token of thanks. for their work with that kid. Because right now, it's ridiculous what's happening to mid-majors. They can't keep talent. They bust their butts to go find guys that can be major contributors to their program, and if they turn out to be exactly that, they've got them for a year, and they're off to greener pastures, and that is completely ridiculous. It used to be, where were you set up better for your pro career? Now you're getting pro money elsewhere and still in college. It's crazy. Crazy. And the tampering that's going on. Don't even get me started there.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
I mean, I guarantee you, there's plenty of players that are being contacted, notified through agents, through schools, whatever the channels might be. And mid-majors are being rated for their talent.
No question. One of the most egregious ones I've seen was the Tennessee center that committed to Dusty May and the Wolverines 3 days or less than after transferring the transfer portal, did no visits, nothing.
No, yeah, it was like 2 days, I think.
Yeah, and then
it was a very quick turnaround. It's just like, oh, well then, yeah, I'll enter the portal and I'll go there. And you get these that go in the portal, do not contact. Well, then how's the school that's getting them? How did they ever make, they go in as a do not contact in the portal. That means they've already decided where they're going. Well, if they weren't in the portal prior to that, how did they know, or how did they get contacted to know what school wants them and how much they're willing to pay them? It's crazy. We got Mr. Vegas with us. Komets 3-3 with Kalamazoo. This is perfect. I thought they should have actually written a script between the two teams and said, okay, we're going to tie in regulation. Because if they tie in regulation, both teams win.
Right.
The Komets get first place, Kalamazoo gets the playoffs. Right? So if they tie in regulation, it's a perfect scenario for both teams.
Maybe they. Do
you remember that NFL game, San Diego, or not San Diego? It was the Chargers and the Raiders a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Where if they would have just tied, both teams were going to make the playoffs, and then they go and try to win it. The Raiders try to win it. Ridiculous. That's basically the position that the Komets and Fort Wayne are at. Rick weighing in, believing that the agents are the biggest problem. Yeah, they are, because they're giving terrible advice because they don't know the game. They just know the cash. So they're giving players bad advice, number one. Number two, they're in and out in about 3 weeks of time, and that's probably all the player will get from that agent, yet they'll have to pay them for the entire year to set up the NIL deal. And there has to probably be, when we talk about trying to put reins around what's going on with NIL, there probably has to be some tighter structure around the do's and don'ts with agents. Because now you're having represented by, or somebody's with an agency. I mean, they're all different levels of what support they're getting. Consultants. Kids are asking, okay, who's got spots open? Who's paying? What levels should I go to or seek? And, they're using consultants. And so you just got to kind of clarify what's out there, what can be expected, and what's the fair rate. I don't know what these kids are paying agents. I'd give them, a Thomas Jefferson and say, thanks for your time. I'll talk to you next year.
It's interesting, but it just does seem like all they care about is lining their pocketbooks, and will do whatever
There are some, and I'm not trying to group everybody together.
No, we're not. But it's just there are a lot of greedy ones out there, unfortunately.
And there are some that I think are in it for legitimate reasons, but that's the problem, is when you don't have reins, the ones that are legitimate get pulled in with the ones that are pulling. I used to work in jewelry.
Right.
And as an industry, or as a company, we try to be extremely ethical, almost to a point where it would cost us sales because we would fairly judge diamonds, and was always told, don't overrate a diamond to sell it. The negative feedback isn't worth making the sale. So we would always be very critical of the grading of our diamonds. But the industry itself had tons of companies that were as unethical as could be. And there were some, very limited, a very small minority, that would, switch diamonds and get caught, right? That's what the public noticed, and they put it as a black mark on the entire industry. All jewelers are cheaters, they're liars, they're unethical, and that wasn't the point. And so we don't want to put that on agents and make it sound like the whole world of agents and agencies is unethical, because that's not my point. But my point is, these kids are 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're not mature enough to really know what to be expected from an agent, what agents are actually putting your needs and your desires first. Because remember, they work for you. And so you have a 40-year-old guy that comes along and says, hey, I've got great relationships. Let me go to work. I can represent you. I can, find you the best deal. And these kids are, hey, great. Wow. That'll be awesome. And a 20-year-old doesn't want to go confront a 40-year-old and say, you know what? I don't think you know what you think you know. And I don't like the way you're doing this. And so they're getting just sucked into the system like air into a Hoover, and then they get into a bad situation. And what happens? A year later, they're looking for a new spot because they don't fit the system, they don't fit the culture. They aren't going to succeed under that coach's style. And those are all things that agents probably don't have, a lot of agents, or some agents, don't have a lot of knowledge about. All right. I also brought this up on a video, and I'm going to bring it up in this show, because we have people that watch the show that maybe don't watch the little short videos. But you should watch everything that we post, because if it's posted, it's well worth watching. It really is. And you should always be subscribing. We've got tons of people that are watching these videos that are not subscribing. Why? Why? I don't know. I mean, that makes no sense not to be a subscriber, because you don't pay anything. There's no fees. I don't get any access to any private information. Nothing. All I know is my subscriber count. And I know how many people come in and watch the videos. And why are so many people watching the videos but not subscribing? If you care enough to watch the video, you should care enough to be a subscriber to that channel. So please subscribe. Just do it for us. And also make sure while you're there, you give us a thumbs up, like the videos, and you share the channel. Let people know that they can catch up on Indiana and Northeast Indiana sports by staying right here with the Sports Rush, bringing you most of the content that we were bringing you on radio, but don't do it there anymore. Oh, so back to my point. I said, the Horizon League has a new commissioner. And I gave a opportunity or a job to this new commissioner, something they need to get done, and that is to set up a MAC Horizon League challenge. The MAC right now is in a challenge. They have a contract with the Sun Belt, and it's a challenge for 2 games, home and home, every year. I don't know who came up with that cockamamie thing, but that means every team in the Sun Belt has to break away from conference and take on a team from the MAC, and you go south, southeast, and you travel to the Midwest, or Midwest has to travel to the south and southeast. And then you have to play twice. So every year you have to go to that school. Crazy. I don't know how they match them all up, because there's no way you can go by the way you used to go, which was previously it used to be first place, place first place, second place, place second place. But because of the turnover of rosters, first place isn't necessarily the best team in the conference anymore. And so the whole thing has run its course. Now what you need to do is make it geographical, take the MAC versus the Horizon. You can have like Detroit Mercy taking on Eastern Michigan. You can have Oakland taking on Central Michigan. Northern Illinois, which is new to the Horizon League, they can take on Western Michigan. That's not that far away. Purdue Fort Wayne can take on Ball State, although might be a problem fighting over Ball State with IU Indy. But you've got Bowling Green, that's not far away. You've got Toledo. Toledo could play Oakland or Detroit Mercy. So but what I'm saying is geographically it's a 2-hour bus ride, maybe an hour and a half for a lot of schools to be able to play each other. And it would make it easy scheduling for teams in those conferences, short trips for the fan base. And I think in most cases the fan base would welcome matchups like Wright State versus Miami, which was a game we had last year. Both teams ended up winning their respective conferences. So I think that should be done. Get rid of that stupid Sun Belt thing and just play a single game every year, Horizon versus MAC.
I like the idea. I think there'd be a lot more interest in the games too, because I don't think any, Sun Belt fan team bases care about any MAC teams and vice versa. But I think a lot of MAC fans know about Horizon League schools, and a lot of Horizon League fans know about MAC schools. And like you said,
how many Ball State fans in Muncie were fired up about Louisiana Tech coming into Muncie to take on the mighty Cardinals? Nobody cared.
No. But if it had been, a Purdue Fort Wayne, it definitely would have drawn some interest.
So we saw video as proof and evidence that the Indiana Fever are back together, and they brought the band back. They've got everybody pretty much coming back, returning. You've got Caitlin Clark, you've got Sophie Cunningham, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell. Now, don't get me started on Aaliyah Boston, because they gave her that Supermax deal for multiple years, and you know what I think about Aaliyah Boston. I think she's terribly overrated. Now she's terribly overpaid. And that's overpaid relative to what the WNBA pay scale is, which is significantly higher than it was. But I think, number one, you're going to pay that much money, get her butt in shape. Get her in shape. Get her in the gym. Hey, beef up, bulk up, tone up.
Be ready to be physical for, the full game, because we're going to need that physicality and effort and rebounding, and we need a lot more. We need more. And now with this contract, they've shown that they expect her to be a cornerstone of this team for, the next few years minimum. So it's time to
Caitlin Clark is healthy. Kelsey Mitchell is healthy. Lexi Hull is healthy. Sophie Cunningham has decided to put her podcast on a back burner briefly.
Can't relate. We're out here podcasting still, but no, it's and she's gonna be the enforcer. She's the one that's gonna fight anybody that's messing with Caitlin Clark, I guess.
But you've got a well-rounded lineup. You've got guards that can really score with Mitchell, Clark, and of course Lexi Hull coming back. She's listed on the roster as a guard. She's really more of a wing than a true guard. But you bring in Monique Billings, who Caitlin Clark had a real rapport with Team USA. She is 6 feet 4 inches tall. Boston at 6'5". Dantas is back at 6'4". So there's height, there's size. And then you're bringing in players like Maisha Hines-Allen, some guards, and of course Raven Johnson, who is drafted in the first round out of South Carolina. And she is probably someone that's going to be more of a defensive type player. It's still to be determined once they get through this training camp whether or not she's going to be a primary point guard backup or if she's going to be a 2-guard backup. But she's not going to be competing for a starting spot. She's going to be somebody that comes off the bench. And the number of minutes she gets off the bench is going to be determined by how she plays and meshes. But she may be someone who's very limited, especially early in the year. But she's going to earn her minutes in situational defense. If you're substituting offense, defense, she's probably going to be somebody who gets some defensive reps. But I think offensively, her game will have to develop a little bit more than where it's at. But based on who was available at that point, you could have gone with the girl from UCLA that's a knockdown three-point shooter. I would not have minded that. I'd have looked for somebody that was more of a specialist, like somebody, you get late in the game and you need some threes that you can put her out there and have an extra three-point shooter on the floor. Because really, that's the only thing I'm questioning is, do they have enough three-point shooting? In a game that is going to be a three-point game where you shoot a number of threes, and most teams do not shoot them all that well, do you have enough three-point shooting to get into the position you want to be in, which is top of the league, competing for a championship? I mean, we know Clark and Mitchell can both drain it. Lexi Hall, inconsistent. She has some great runs, but then she has droughts. And I'm looking at this roster thinking, where else does the scoring and shooting come from? One interesting name that's on this training camp roster, and it's part of the development spots that they have now in the WNBA, because they're trying to avoid what happened to the Fever last year. You remember the Fever with 12 players on the roster. I think they actually only had 11 when all of this started. Fever started getting all the injuries. Next thing you know, they were trying to pull players out of European leagues and all over the place to try to fill out their roster.
Yeah.
And so now they've expanded rosters by one. They have added 2 developmental spots on the roster, so you get those 2 spots. But Megan McConnell, the sister of TJ McConnell, is on the training camp roster.
Yeah, interesting. Could be 2 McConnells down there in Indy.
Yeah, McConnell. They're starting a law firm down there in Indy. All right, let's talk NFL draft. Indianapolis Colts. You don't have to even watch Thursday. Colts aren't going to be picking anybody, and they don't have any leverage to be able to go up and try to get into the first round.
Yeah, and I don't think Ballard would ever do that anyway. Moving up
No,
into the
but
first
that brings
round,
up my point. If you're not going to get a pick until number 47, why don't you trade? And I think they could do this and still get a player that could potentially help them, maybe not year one, but at least down the road. Because I don't know if you're going to get an impact player out of middle of the second round. We'll see how the board goes. But I've got my eye on players. I know what the Colts, I think, need, and that's wide receiver and linebacker. And I think linebacker over wide receiver, because the one thing the Colts have is they have some different names they can rotate in. But when you take Josh Downs and Alec Pierce, I think you've got 2 pretty good wide receivers, one in the slot, one out wide. And, of course, you've got who I think is ultimately going to be the best tight end in the league in Tyler Warren. And a lot of that is because of versatility and clutch play. But so I don't know if, you have to have that balance at wide receiver on the other side. I know the idea is you have to have 2 good wide receivers to take away the pressure of doubling Alec Pierce on every snap. But it's still going to happen. I mean, if you draft a rookie, he's not going to draw a double team, and he's not going to stop teams from doubling Alec Pierce if they're really concerned about the over-the-top help. But where the Colts certainly are going to need help is at linebacker. I was looking at the linebacker rankings and who's going to be available and what the Colts might want to do with that pick at number 47. And here's what I'm seeing. There's a name that's intriguing, Anthony Hill. He's a linebacker out of Texas.
Yeah.
Considered to be really athletic, kind of a 6'2", athletic type of guy, a little bigger, taller than Zaire Franklin. He's projected late second, maybe even into the third round. And I'm like, maybe the Colts roll the dice. If the numbers are there for linebackers or if there's a wide receiver you'd still be willing to take, maybe you make a trade. You don't want to go down too far, but if you can get one extra pick out of it, Chris Ballard loves that. You go 47 down to the 50s, maybe lose 7, 8, 9 spots, whatever. But you pick up an extra pick, maybe a third, fourth rounder, whatever that pick would be. And then you take Anthony Hill, linebacker out of Texas. Now, if you stay at 47, another name is if you want a little bit more of a prototypical middle linebacker, more of a bone crusher, run supporter type of guy. You might find that in C.J. Allen, although the comp for Allen is Zaire Franklin. I looked at NFL.com and looked at the comp, and the comp was Zaire Franklin. And I'm like, well, you could certainly replace Franklin with this guy because he fits the comp, but this he's one of those guys that might be the year or two away type of guy. Not necessarily the great athlete, but a guy that is a technique linebacker. He handles angles well. He, uses leverage when he's fighting off a block and does a lot of things technique-wise well. Was an All-American last year and a finalist for the Butkus Award. And he got experience playing at Georgia, which is not a bad football team if you haven't paid attention. So he's got all that going for him. So my two guys targeting in the second round, C.J. Allen and Anthony Hill Jr. Anybody that you've seen in the draft so far, have you looked at it at all, Adam?
I was looking at the one out of Texas that you mentioned, and I thought that was Anthony Hill. I was looking at that as a potential linebacker. Another one that's caught my eye for that around 47th spot is Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. He's got a high football IQ, and he's graded well on his run defense. So could be another option there at that 47th spot, but that's also another linebacker I think you could get a little bit later if Ballard wanted to do one of his classic trade downs.
All right, now, I've got to fully disclose this because it looks like such a sucker pick after the results of today. I did not pick this after the games today. I actually had this on the sheet to talk about on this show before today's games were played. Today's games made me look very smart, and I did check because I didn't want to look stupid. But I made my NBA picks for the finals. Okay. The two teams that I think are going to play in the NBA Finals. And I would show you. I mean, it's right here on the sheet. I don't know if you can't see it.
No.
But Boston Celtics, Oklahoma City Thunder. Those are the two I've got advancing. Oklahoma City, so much experience. I think when they match up against a team like Denver, I think they can defend them. A team like San Antonio, too young, not experienced in that type of pressure. I think Oklahoma City is the best in the West, and I think they're going to prove it and get to the finals once again. Boston, I mean, they're going to be tough to beat in the East. Pistons, young, not quite ready for prime time. They're much, next year we could be talking about Detroit, San Antonio. I'm just not sure that the time to talk about it is this year. So I've got Boston, Oklahoma City. What say you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Oklahoma City out of the West. I got to take my Knicks out of the East.
I knew it was coming.
We got to get past the Hawks, and then we got to get past those Celtics that you just mentioned, too, if we want to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Celtics will easily handle the 76ers, and so it should be Knicks-Celtics in the next round. And then it would be probably Pistons or Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know. I think the Knicks can hang with either of those teams as well. So hopefully we can come out of the East.
Somehow the Knicks are going to choke their way to a semifinal loss.
Oh man, that would stink. But hey, I personally, I think that reaching the conference finals would be good. But a lot of Knicks fans are still finals or bust. So we'll see. We'll see how far Cat and Brunson can take those guys up there in the Big Apple.
All right, so I don't know if we still got Mr. Vegas hanging around or if he has an update on that Komets score.
I have it up here on the on my scoreboard here. 5 minutes to go here in the third period, it looks like, or we're 5 minutes into the third period. Still tied at 3-3.
I'm telling you, they should just be playing chuck-a-puck at mid ice.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, so, thank you, Mr. Vegas. Mr. Vegas just said 3-3.
Thank you.
A tie doesn't hurt anybody, and that would be enough for the Komets to take the division and the number one seed in that division. I mean, it's just one of those things where we need the pride. We're starting to get kind of a loser's complex that we're always finishing second behind Toledo. So now it'd be nice if we can actually have bragging rights against the Walleye and have home ice advantage should we play the Walleye in the playoffs. But what would be interesting? There is a scenario. Let me see which scenario it is. I think it's if the Komets win in overtime. If the Komets win in overtime, nope. It would have to be. Oh, now hold on. Maybe not. I thought there was a scenario, but I guess not. I thought there was a scenario where these two teams could actually end up playing each other in the playoffs, but it doesn't appear to be the case. No. Because Kalamazoo, if they force overtime, Kalamazoo's going to finish third. And the Komets will finish first, and one doesn't play three. So the question then becomes, Indy has one chance to make the playoffs, and that is only if the Komets win this in regulation. Well, that's motivation right there for the Komets to not win this in regulation.
Yeah, we don't want the Fuel to have any success.
No, we want to screw the team in Indy.
Yeah, they're holding their destiny in their hands here in this third period with 14 minutes remaining.
So, what is it, 3-3 still?
Yep, still 3-3.
All right, well, we'll have to follow that. Nothing much else happening. Tin Caps at home this week.
Yeah, and you mentioned great weather, should be.
Yeah. Next 3 nights, terrific weather.
Hey, did you see on
6:30 starts on Tuesday and Wednesday, 7 o'clock start Thursday, Friday, back to 6:30 on Saturday. Saturday is going to be the 1 o'clock start.
Yes, and did you see on Sunday they're doing a sweet giveaway? It's you can't technically call it a Snuggie because we don't want to get in any trouble, but it's a sleeved blanket that's going to be given away for the first 1,000 fans on Sunday. So
that wearable blanket.
Yeah,
it's a wearable blanket that is valued what, $20-$25 or something.
I would pay that much for it. It's awesome. It's got a nice red checkered pattern with the Tin Caps logo on it, and
yeah.
I was going to say,
first 1,000 fans on Sunday, I believe, are going to get that.
It looks awesome, so definitely get out
Actually,
there.
First 998 fans after you take the 2 broadcasters that will be cheating and grabbing one.
Those cheaters, but like I said,
no, they won't let me get away with that.
It's a hot commodity, though, for sure. So definitely get down to the ballpark on Sunday and before Sunday. Get in as many games as possible.
All right. Well, we always appreciate everybody that joins us on our Sunday show. We will be posting the replay. We also will be posting some shorts throughout the week, some of the highlights from this show. Make sure you give those a quick listen. Also, let people know about the channel. I still have people every single week. Oh, I'm sorry you're not on the radio. I said, did you know we're on YouTube? No, I didn't know you were on YouTube. All right, well, let people know.
Spread the word.
Yeah. Be part of the show and share it. Subscribe. Most of the people that watch on Sundays now, most of them are subscribers, but where we need help is expanding past this initial core that we have. And you can be a big part of that by liking and sharing if you've already subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, just take a second, click that little button on YouTube. Help us out. All right. Have a great week. Enjoy the beautiful weather. It is going to get warmer. It's going to stay sunny for a few days. Hopefully, we'll see you down at the ballpark. That'll be it for another edition of the Sports Rush. Look forward to talking to you again next Sunday.